I'm not an expert on self-determination, and therefore my only understanding is unless we have something in common, or something that connect us, which is what I look at it as an identity. Unless we don't have something in common, the identity, then I think the whole question of self-determination is also not going to be, it's not going to be fulfilling if we are not talking about our identity. But identity has many factors. We have the historical factors, we have social factors, we have economic factors, and we also have the cultural factors. And then when we talk of the cultural factors, then that's where the whole the emic and the ethic perspective, the explicit and the implicit thing that we are talking about. This is the different aspects of our of the cultural factors. But when we talk of idols, the explicit aspect of the culture, it's also the formal appearance of our culture. And for me, I see our traditional handloom and textiles, our clothing, our attires as one of the most important thing, apart from the others, many others that we have. For example, how many communities are here which have not showcased their own being a member of a particular community by not wearing a traditional dress? Or how many of us are here who haven't given a gift to outsiders, whether within the same community as in within the Naga community or to somebody else, without giving gifts, one of our traditional clothings or textiles as a gifts. We have been doing that, yet somehow we don't take it very important. We don't take it as important as we would like to. Some of the question that came to my mind is, why is it so? Is it because weaving is done by women? So that's also the question that came to my mind. And weaving has been assigned to the women in the process of the social construction of the community through the gender division of articles, activities, and roles, which have been considered a perfect fit in the patriarchal setup. So because weaving is done by women, and therefore we are not giving so much of importance to weaving, is that one of the in the whole patriarchal setup, is that could that be one of the reason why it's not finding the importance in the community? It is as same as the in terms of the seed keepings and seed keepers and all. Most of the seed keepers are women, but then many of us are doing different kinds of work now, but then if we go back to the past, we are essentially agricultural society. So nothing happens if we do not have seeds. And all the seeds are actually majority, even now, it would be very rare to find a man as a seed keeper, but almost every woman in the village, they are seed keepers. But then we hardly take any cognizance of the roles and responsibilities that they have been doing this for generations to generations. So these are one of the things that I also want to highlight as we are about to have a discussion on this. And also, interestingly, the first Naga flag that we hear through the social media is actually woven. It was woven, the flag was woven by a woman, you know. So I think that's the connection that I want to bring in there. Well, without written culture, our stories are recorded in our social, political, economic, and cultural systems. In our clothes are woven who we are and what we are. Our textiles, clothes is our identity marker. So how do we preserve this? How do we take it forward? For me, I look at it in two different ways. One is documentation and publication, and the other option is also looking through preservation through GI registration. So Mo Naga is one of the speakers that we have today, and he's going to bring in, because we cannot do documentation unless we understand the historical background, the narrations, or the meanings, the significance of the motifs, of the patterns, of the colors, of the design, and even even the number of panels, why some clothes have specific panels in a particular community. So unless we don't understand all those things, we will not be able to preserve our handloom and textiles. That's one thing. And the other thing is, well, when we talk about GI registration as a part of IPR, then a lot of the indigenous communities, we normally say that that GI is not in tune with the indigenous community. IPR is not the best of ideas. So we do have quite a lot of people who are against GI registration as an indigenous community. Well, yes, because they say that it does not provide adequate protection to the indigenous cultural products and expressions. It is a threat for our cultural maintenance, and it is designed to foster commercial and industrial growth. So when we talk about the commercial aspect of it, I think I would agree. If we look at IPR in India, then from the registry website, we see that in 2017 and 18, because for each and every product, that whether you want to copyright, trademark, or patent, or designed, or GI registration, you essentially pay 5,000 per products or per items. So in 2017 to 18, the money that the registry office received from the registration is 477 crores. So which is actually not a joke in that sense. So it seems to become a business kind of a thing. And very recently, from what we hear from some of the people working in TriFed, they have been desperately trying, and especially in the Northeast, because they say that it's one of the most, the best place to have lots of GI tagging. So they are looking out for stuffs where they can do GI tags. So they, try to bring in different kinds of things for GI tagging. So this is and this is done through the TriFed office. On one hand, whether the community wants to do it or not, that's a different thing. But from the TriFed office, which is a part of the central government, one of the ministry. So in that sense, they're also pushing towards it because it's all about business in one way. But having said that, I mean, this is where our friend, Dr. Nitasalu, is going to come in with the GI registration. Why it is important to do that? So we have two excellent speakers today. And first I will request Monaga to speak, and then after him, Neta will share her thoughts. For the audience, I just wanted to share a little bit about who is Monaga. Many of you know him very well, but just for the benefit of some friends who may not know him, let me just say something about Mo. Mo started studying traditional art and design culture of the Naga people, mainly focusing on textiles. In 2009, he graduated from NIFT in fashion design, but at the same time, he shifted his focus from textiles to tattooing in 2008 as he felt the urgency to study tattoo. Since then, he has been studying, promoting, and spreading awareness about Naga cultural identity through its arts and design culture. Mo Naga has represented India in many national and international platforms. He has been featured in World Atlas of Tattoo by Yale University. He is the only person from India and from the subcontinent to feature in Tattoo Masters flash collections, styles from around the world. The only artist in the subcontinent to feature in a complete documentary episode of Canadian series Indigenous. He had exclusive pop-up episode by BBC World and other international channels. He has showcased Naga tattoo culture at the National Museum, Kolkata. Currently, he's collaborating with Humboldt Museum in Berlin. He has earlier contributed to Horniman Museum. Recently, he has been empaneled by the Ministry of Textiles Handloom to run a producer company in Manipur with the vision to empower the traditional weavers, artisans, and to promote handloom through creativity and innovation. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I would like to give at least maximum 15 minutes for you to share your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Achan. Yeah, where do I start? Can you hear me, Achan? Am I audible?
Yes, Mo, you are audible. I can
Okay.
hear you very well.
All right. So, in the beginning, I would like to mention something very powerful, something very important when we talk about our tribal art, culture, or if we even speak specifically about the Nagas, we often talk about our creativity, our expression, our stories uh, through the perspective and within the borders of art and culture. The mention of design is not there. So when we talk about design, the design is done to fulfill some kind of a purpose. uh, there is some problem and you fix that through design. Art is a more expression, it's more personal, there is more flow in it, there's no technical, it is believed, often to not have much technicality in it. And because of that, even in the present context, uh, our cultural objects. It may be a spear, a dao, uh, anything, which are actually designed. They have purpose. They have certain measurements. They have designed according to the ergonometry of the users and things like that. So this is one thing which I would like to touch upon, because often all these are categorized in the uh, as art, and culture. Even the department that we have is also art and culture. There is no mention of design, and this is a conditioning from the outside world perceived who who perceive our creativity as nothing more than uh, uh, you know an expression of our of art, but not very technical. So that is one thing. The second thing that I would like to stress is that when we talk about our handloom, our textiles, how it expresses our identity, and how it shapes our aesthetics. In order to understand our textiles, our patterns, our symbols, uh, we have to we have to go back in time. We have to go back to the root. You know, uh, there are a lot of things that is being done for textiles through the government sector, through the NGO, through private sectors. Yet we don't have a lot of information about all these symbols. We have a lot of pride and ownership about that, to an extent where there have been wars, there have been killings, there have been uh, you know a lot of tension uh, because of fight uh, or of ownership over certain patterns and designs. But if it but all these fights, all this struggle to have ownership, when we dig further into, often we find that uh, it is merely for ownership. We do not have an in-depth understanding of it, and thereby there's one point which I often feel that we as a community uh, tend to look at our cultural objects and try to find our narrative, uh, not not in a direction, not in a direction where how it was used, how it was where it come from, and what it means, and uh, the possibility of tracing relations between neighboring tribes, tribes that are far away, nations that are far away. There is so much scope to understand through our art and design culture, not just through textiles, but through different aspects of our culture, including tattoo. and to understand that, to start looking at our cultural objects or indicators of our identity, to start looking at them with, through these eyes, we have to go back in time. We will have to look at through the windows of, through the eyes of our ancestors. We cannot have a biased, judgmental approach of studying and preserving. You know, it cannot be through. It cannot be just through pride. It has to be with strategy. It has to be through self, humbling, unlearning process. We have to take the approach of curiosity to learn, to understand. As long as we keep ourselves on top, as long as we look at it, as long as we try to understand it through the window of the modern conditioning, or through the religious uh, perspective, then we will not be able to understand uh, the depth. And if we don't, if that is the case, then our search for identity, our search for history, our search for our origin, our search for our, to understand our relation with all the different tribes will not be uh, possible. That's what I feel.
Okay, Mo, we are still listening.
Hmm. So, and coming back to what you said in the beginning about why is weaving, why does weaving not find its deserving place in our current structure? I think uh, it's true. At this very moment, uh, our textiles, our traditional uh, patterns, our symbols, and our textiles, all these are looked at from a very from the perspective of an outsider, and that is what we have started inheriting it, and in a way we are colonizing ourselves of our aesthetics and the way we look at uh, our cultural objects as something that uh, can generate some kind of income that can support, but back in the day, it was never like that. It was a lot. There was a lot of pride attached to it. Certain shawls, uh, certain products were not allowed to be woven inside the village. You have to go out of the village into the forest, in a sacred place where all the virgin girls would come out, and then they would weave there. They would have their rice beer. They would sing songs. So it was an activity that was strictly for the women, but with a lot of pride, with a lot of creativity, with a lot of spirit, which we don't see anymore. So if we try to look at it from a current point of view, yes, uh, it is our textiles, is our handloom is being viewed from a very different perspective, whereas back in the days, if you try to understand, it was not so. The woman had a very high place. Uh, uh, it is equal to carvers, who would carve woods, or who would make all those different accessories. Uh, it was just another profession with a lot of honor, and in current times, it doesn't seem to be so. And I think if we want to bring back that honor, if we want to uh, bring back that prestige, because in the end of the day, as you have mentioned, these textiles, is one of the most important indicator of our identity, right? And for that reason, uh, uh, the textiles uh, it was associated with a lot of pride for men, and every different tribes, would never try to imitate the other one. They would always try to be different, you know. They would always try to create something that would make them different, that would make them identifiable as another tribe, So every every handloom product was very important, very valuable. Not everybody could afford those those in the rich family, or those in the royal family, or those who could achieve certain feats in the community for uh, work for the community. Those kind of people were able to acquire, more clothing on their body. But mostly, even if we wanted to, we could not afford, because for that, it is not like how we practice now. You have to go first plant the fiber, right? And then to harvest it, and then you dye it, and then you weave it, So it's a long process, and it's not like today, where you go to the market, buy the yarn, and then come back, weave, and then sell it. It was never meant for the outsiders, and no other tribe wanted to own any of the cloth from another tribe, because they have so much pride in their own attire. So because of that, uh, there was a lot of pride and honor attached uh, and given to the weavers. And today we only looked at it as commercial uh, possibilities, and that is where I think uh, um, that is why we are here to discuss today. And I think I will end it here for now.
Thank you so much, Mo. Yes, you took only 12 minutes to say everything, precise, concise, and there is so much you have put it together in that short period of time. And I think as we listen to Neta, maybe after that we'll have the question together. So I think lots of time for our participants here to reflect back to what you have said. And since it's a dialogue, I would like to request all the participants to dialogue here, so that we all can learn from each other. Thank you so much, Mo. Now I would like to introduce our friend, Dr. Nita Sulu. She holds a degree in PhD in remote sensing from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad in 2005. She has experience and work in RD sector in the field of remote sensing and GIS, land resource management, intellectual property rights, etc. for more than 12 years. She is a visiting faculty in Nagaland University from 2005 to 2007, visiting professor and PDF at Department of Biology, West Virginia University, USA in 2015-17, and worked on landscape genomics and computational biology. She has vast experience on IPR, especially in geographical indication, and advocating on the awareness of protecting ideas and traditional knowledge heritage through IPR in the state, and facilitating for filing of GI. She has represented the Chakesang Women Welfare Society for GI filing at IPR Office New Delhi, and resource person for state IPR. She is currently working as scientist DS at NASTEC under the Department of Science and Technology, Kohima, and in charge of Patent Information Center. Thank you so much, Neta, to be with us. We look so much forward to listening to you, and perhaps it will throw light on the importance of GI registration, which a lot of our people are quite a little bit skeptical about it. But after listening to you, I'm sure that everybody will say that I think we really need to go for GI. And as usual, I think I'll give you 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Achand, for the wonderful introduction. And yeah, I'll try to cover within this 15 minutes. I'll try my best. Yeah. And first of all, I want to thank the organizer, that is the Nagaland People's Movement for Human Rights, for giving me this opportunity on this wonderful platform and inviting me to be part of this event. So today's topic is on the cultural heritage on textile. I want to highlight how important it is to protect our rich cultural heritage in today's context. So I want to share my PPT. Am I allowed to share or?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course, of course.
Yeah, so can you enable it? Because here it shows this.
Yes, I will. Give me
One. One can help.
Yeah, it's disabled for screen sharing.
We'll make you co-host. Please hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to share a PPT on cultural appropriation and how IPR plays an important role in this. Yeah, I think I can share now. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put it in full
Yes.
screen. Yeah, is the full screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I just want to highlight on this cultural appropriation and how IPR, intellectual property rights, play an important role in Naga context. So first I want to highlight briefly on the cultural appropriation. So it broadly refers to the use of the object or an element, be it in the form of art, clothing, textile, or jewelry of a minor culture that doesn't respect the original meaning, that doesn't give this, understand the significance, use for their own personal advantage, and doesn't give credit to the source. And it also refers when it disrespect to that culture and its people. So when our culture and tradition are misused, then we need to understand how and why do we need to protect our rich heritage, especially on the textile, and how do we sustain? So when we talk about this protection of our textile heritage, then who is responsible? Then I would say that it is a collective responsibility of every individual, and it should be an inclusive of both male and female, in protecting our Naga textile, because I just want to share a few experiences that while facilitating GI filing with our Naga tribal communities, that we have realized that equal responsibility, collective responsibility is very important, because when it comes to the weaving to the textile, that men that tend to think that it is the woman's work, it is the woman's job, simply because we women are associated with the weaving. But men are also equally responsible, because here I want to just highlight that they have a very important role in making their own traditional gears, ornaments, and even the tools of weaving. It's the men who made all those. And in our society, most of the decisions are taken by men. So unless the men are part of the process, right decision cannot be taken, because this is the community's property, not an individual property. So it is everyone's responsibility to protect it, preserve it, and promote it in the right manner, ethically, because it holds our identity and people's history. So recently, with the development of the cultural industries, I can see that lots of cultural appropriation is taking place recently. And so this is where the IPR, intellectual property rights, it plays a very important role in safeguarding our rich textile heritage. So in order to safeguard better, it is better to have a legal protection. At least we should take the custodian of our cultural heritage and file for GI, copyright and trademark and all. So briefly, I'll talk about this. What is intellectual property rights? So intellectual property, this broadly refers to the creation of the human mind. So that is the product of mind, your creativity. It can be in the form of an invention, literary, artistic works, design, symbols, logos, and all. So intellectual property rights. This gives the creator an exclusive right over the use of his or her creation over a certain period of time. Then under this IPR, again, there are different branches like patent, trademark, copyright, design, farmer's right and plant varieties, trade secret, layout, design, and GI. So since we are talking about the community's heritage here, GI, it plays a very important role in protecting the community's heritage. And at the same time, to get it deals with the how to get the benefits out of it also. So briefly, I'll talk more on the GI. So what is GI? It is a name or a sign used on a certain product which corresponds to the geographical specific origin and possess a quality and reputation that are due to that origin. So that means it links a product to a particular region, and it connects to the region inherent characteristic like soil, climate, and all, and it indicates a quality and a reputation. So it is a form of IP right meant for empowerment of producer of goods. And it is also a mechanism that helps the producer to differentiate their product from others in the market. That is basically to differentiate what are the original one and what are your products and what are the duplicate. So once if you file the GI, the duration of protection is for 10 years, which can be renewed. And GI, it is a community right. Here, because individual cannot file GI, it has to be a community or it has to be a society, recognized society. So the applicant, whoever is filing for the GI, must represent the interests of the producer. Now, coming to the legal framework, earlier in India, there is no separate GI law, GI Act. It was earlier protected under the Trademark Act. But later on, India also has come under the Agreement on TRIPS, that is the trade-related aspect of intellectual property rights. So India also has introduced the exclusive right of GI Act in 1999, which is enforced in 2003. So it's kind of a pretty new thing in India. And why this GI Act? So this is the first law to confer the legal protection to GI in India. So once if you register the GI, once if you become the proprietor, owner of GI product, then you can take legal action against those who are making an authorized use without the permission. So once GI is registered, you cannot copy it any style, kind, pattern, or a type without a permission. So this prevents marketing imitation product. And why geographical indication? It's important because it enables the local people to derive maximum economic benefits out of their produce. And as I said before, GI is a marketing tools also, which benefits the farmers and the local producer. This is something to do away with the local man, the middleman. So at the same time, this gives legal protection and it prevents from unauthorized use. So this not only prevents the traditional goods from being misused, but at the same time, you can gain profit by exporting the product up to, in a right way. And I should say, GI is also a way of preserving the local culture, identity, traditional knowledge, and resources. Because one of the uniqueness of the Naga is that every tribe, we are identified by our traditional attire, right? The shawl that we wear, the pattern and all, we can identify each other from whatever tribe you are. And also while filing the GI, you have to provide all the information, the documentation, that is providing the uniqueness, history of the goods, proof of origin, specification of the goods, everything. So those are our distinctive identity. So it also maintains the originality, because when you give the proof of origin and the history of the goods and all, here we are talking about the narrative, which has been traditionally passed down, not the new narrative. So GI also is a way of maintaining its originality and its significance. So this provides a legal recognition and act as a deterrent to pirates and infringers. So in order to protect the cultural heritage of textile, here I just want to mention here that the Chagasan community in Nagaland, Chagasan community has filed the GI and got in 2015, and this is the first in Nagaland. So here they have filed in 2015. And they have the documentation process, it started way back in 1994. So it's a long journey, for them. So these are the 3 GI from Nagaland. So this is the Chagasan shawls and this is the GI number. So and this is the GI logo. This is registered under the trademark. So this will be the branding name. Without the logo, without registering the trademark, we cannot control. Because GI, that gives indication, but we need this logo to be registered in case of the business purpose. So once if the Chagasan community has enforced the GI, then at the hem of the shawl, you will find this logo to indicate that this is the original and this is from the Peg district from Nagaland, to indicate that. And these two are the other agricultural product that has been registered. But the difference here is that I want to highlight here that Naga Mercha, this is owned by the Horti Department, government of Nagaland, but the Naga Tree Tomato, it's not owned by the Naga community. It's owned by the Naramek. I'm sure you all must be aware of this also. It's by the Northeast Regional Marketing Agency, where their office is located in Noida. So that is the difference. And there's a little bit danger here, which we can have in a discussion. Yeah, and while I want to highlight some of the examples here. While facilitating the Chagasan community, when we went to the GI office, then on the GI hearing day, we came to know that these three shawls, Asumi, Angami, and Au shawl, these are filed by the Northeast Regional Director, the Development Commissioner of Handicraft Ministry of Textile and NIF Kolkata. So this was pending. So we came back and we did a lot of sensitization, and this has been opposed by 3 tribal organizations, and this was rejected in 2019. And the Naga Cucumber also, this was filed way back in 2013, and this was pending. And last year I came to know that they have taken up again. And today I saw in a paper that this has been granted. And this is again also owned by the outsider again, the ownership. And some of the challenges that I want to discuss here, some of the misuse of our shawl. So when we see all this beautiful picture, it is very creative. It's beautiful design. We have to appreciate it. But on the closer look, how do you all feel? Because here we have a gender specific men's shawl, women's shawl, and all. And again, this shawl on the top left, if you see here, then this is we call it the status shawl, Feast of Marriage shawls. And among the Chagasan community, this, unless you give twice of feast to the whole community, this you cannot, the female are not allowed to use and all, and the female version, it's different. But here they have put on the skirt. And also they have extracted the motifs and all and used on this. And all this men's shawl has been put into the skirt and our shawl, which we are so attached to it. All these are put in the umbrella, boot cover, and printed on the alien fabric on the sari. And another one that I want to highlight here on the top, this, the headgear. It's supposed to be used on the head, right? But maybe because of the sheer ignorance, then the headgear, all these are put on the pants and all. So we really need to ponder and give a serious thought, because our culture, it's very unique and all, which has significance, which is our identity. But so we really need to sensitize our student also, our local designer also, how to promote it in the right way, because exploitation, it's happening out of ignorance and maybe as a fashion statement. So we really need to educate ourselves also. So another issue that I want to highlight here is that the Ritu Berry collection. I'm sure most of you must have heard about, must have seen this. She has showcased her design called Naga Narrative in last year, February 2020. So here what she did is that, can you recognize the shawl? These two are the Chagasan shawls, GI tech shawls. So this is the men's shawls and this is the female shawls. But what she did is that the male shawls, she has printed on, first of all, she has printed on the alien fabric, then put it into the sari, into a skirt, and she put on the carpet, on the ramp for people to walk. And this is a shawl, right? It's supposed to be used as a shawl, but here again, put on the a skirt again. So which really misrepresented and which really distorted our identity. So the state government has written to the Rituberi and Trifect not to go ahead before without asking the permission from the concerned communities. but they went ahead and on seeing this display, it has really angered and hurt the sentiments of the community, which has led to civil lawsuit against the designer and the trifect. And here, there are two cases. One is the GI tag infringement and another is on the defamation. So the court, it's still in the court. Yeah, recently another hearing also it happened. And another case which recently happened is that Ritika, the Indian designer. So in this, she has really misused the community's property. Here, circle in the yellow, this is the original version, and this is the mekhala, this is the GI, this is under GI tag. So what she did is she has changed the color, put into the yellow, combine these two, and change the color and put into the sari. And not only that, this is the GI shawl, that GI tag shawl, right, Chakasang, and this also that nettle shawl. So what happened is that she took the copyright of this, and she took the copyright of this. It seems she has done that so that people the other designer doesn't copy the design. And not only that, she has claimed the word tevo. Tevo, this is in the Chakasan dialect in Keja. So tevo, that means nettle. So she said that the word tevo is traded from her tevo project, giving closest tribute to the original pronunciation. So before she came to the community, the word tevo, the stinking nettle, how it's made into the yarn, into the weaving, all those traditional knowledge, it's been there and it has been passed down from generation to generation. And when the community asks Ritika not to do like this, first to take a permission with the terms and conditions that she can promote it, when the community approached her, she challenged the whole community and invite the community to come to Punjab. So she went ahead and launched her Mora collection 2021 on 8 August this year. And in that, she has launched, most of her products are this tevo. So she has blend with the cotton, with the silk and all. So here again, she named the word silhouette. So this is in the Chakasan dialect. So that means possible. Silhouette means in Chakasan dialect. And she has this pattern also, she has put in the sari, into sari and all. So she came to the community and very smartly, very cunningly, she stole the community's heritage. So so this is the, it's clearly a cultural thief. So these are the serious matter that we really have to, see and all, especially this copyright claim and all. So when there is a cultural appropriation with or without GI, with GI you have the advantage, but without GI also the community has the every right, to protect and fight what is rightfully belongs to them, because nobody has the right to use our indigenous textile, our property, without the consent, without giving due credits, and without paying royalty. So we really need to sensitize our community. Our community has to be well informed in order to take the right decision. So we really need to educate and sensitize our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nisa. We heard so much about what's going on with the Chakesang shawls with Rituberi and Ritika, but to hear it firsthand from you, who are actually walking through the whole process, it becomes more meaningful to us to understand more about the importance of GI tech. Thank you so much for sharing all this information. I'm sure it is very meaningful for all the participants today. Both you have also raised the importance of documentation, whether it is being GI registered or not, but the matter of the fact that if we have our own documentation, if we are able to publish it, maybe even in our own dialect, but that actually becomes the guiding principles. Because when we talk of cultural appropriation, one of the questions that comes to our mind is it only from the outsider or within the community as well, within the Naga community or within our own tribe? So, but if we have something of documentation and which is published and become the guiding principle for even within our community to understand, because like Mo have said that if we really have to understand from the very beginning how it is related to our environment, to our worldviews, and also in terms of how the designs and patterns differs from one tribe to another tribe, because our identity as belonging to a particular village or belonging to a particular community, there has to be some kind of differentiations amongst ourselves. But unless if we don't understand, I mean, like, for example, when we talk of one of the shawl, which is also GI tagged, which is also GI tagged in Manipur in 2014, the Shapi Lanti in Manipur that we call it. It does maybe perhaps, I have not really looked into the details of the motifs, but I do see that there is a little bit of difference in the motifs, which is there on the cloth. But both the two communities have a different meanings that is being attributed to those particular designs and motifs. So we have our own interpretations. So in the same way, like, unless we are not able to understand the meanings and significance of the designs of the patterns and motifs which is there in our community, then we will be just putting, it's going to be more of a copy paste, because you think that the design is nice and maybe perhaps it will match with this color, and therefore you take it away and you start creating a new, perhaps even new clothes or new shawls or new wrapped around. So I think that also become a point of contention even for us from within the community and also from outside, of which Nessa have beautifully highlighted about the problems that we face. So in this context, both are two, I mean, the documentation and also unless we have some kind of a legal instrument, a legal aspect of it to preserve and protect or to safeguard our traditional handloom and textiles, I think in this competitive world where everything is about commercialization, I think we have so much to lose. So I now opened our dialogue for discussion. And if you want to ask, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself and put your question, or otherwise if you want to put it on the chat also, that's all right. I think we'll pick it up from there. So it's open for discussion. So while we are reorganizing our minds to ask the question, I think I also wanted to ask Nessa. I was just looking up on all these things, and I was just wondering why the CWWS, the Chakisan women, have decided to do GI tech only on shawls and not on wrapped around. I was just curious. So that is one of the questions that I just wanted to put it across to Nessa.
All right, yeah, Ajahn, yeah. So what happened is that they have included some of the original mekhala wrap around in the same thing. So I think all together, I think around 18 shawls and wraparound, 3 wraparound, the original one they have included. They didn't include the modern design or anything. Yeah, so 3 wraparound. But what happened is that because the money also it involves. So for that, we have clubbed together the shawls and the wraparound, because some it comes as a set, and also we have class all together as a wraparound. I mean, like a Chagasan shawls. And in that we have registered at the same time under the different class, under the different trademark class. That is class 24 and 27, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. So where some of the pattern, where they can use, use on some clothes or some waistcoats or some on the as a decorative piece, where they can use some of them motifs, because it's all, yeah. So somewhere we can allow for people to use, and also for that reason, we have registered under the different trademark classes, not only the GI, but where you can use it and all also. So as you were saying before, the GI is a very business thing and all. Yes, in India initially when it's introduced, it's for the business and all, but at the same time, this gives a, this gives a legal protection. And again, apart from the GI rules, the community has to come up with their own guidelines. Up to what extent, once you have to take the ownership by any means, that is where I used to stress upon. Whatever it may be, legally, you have to take the ownership. After that, you can give the permission, the user license for people to use, but the community has to come up with the guidelines. What are the motifs that they can use? Up to what extent you can allow the designer to use on what and all? Strictly the guidelines has to be there. The community guideline has to be there. So many of the people there, as you are saying, the people are skeptical and all, but there is nothing to be scared of. In fact, I mean, I strongly support for the GI, because with the GI law, and with the communities, your own guidelines, we can very well protect it and promote it ethically, in the right manner. Because in Nagaland, at least here we have the Article 371 in case of Nagaland. But that is not enough to protect our heritage, because there is no legal binding. And that that customary law, it doesn't stand too strong in the Indian code. Say, for example, now Ritika, she is misusing, she is making all those in Punjab, the textile are used, but we cannot apply our customary law in Punjab. Only the GI, this gives a legal stand. So it's very important for the community to understand the goodness and the importance of the GI. Apart from GI, have your own law, have your own guidelines, and promote it. At the same time, get a profit. Let the weavers also get a profit and all, and beautifully, the community can do it.
If I may, okay. Is there anyone?
Yeah,
yes,
Dr. Chan,
yes.
it's me actually. I was busy typing in the chat box, but it was taking too much time. So I think it's better to just say it out loud.
Please, please.
I wanted to ask more actually regarding the tribal tattoo patterns. Is there, similar concerns happening over there in, your field? Anything to say about this, about IP rights?
Yes, it has started. The latest one is just 2 days ago. I got this message from my friend. She has this traditional owl tattoo on her forearm, which I did 4 or 5 years ago, and she went to a garage to fix her car, and there's this boy who was cleaning her car, spotted the same tattoo on his arm, So she asked him, where did he get this design and why did he got that tattoo? And he just found it on the internet, and he liked it and he got it done, not knowing what it means. Because if he knew, he wouldn't do that, because those marks are for women, for weavers. And yeah, also recently there are a lot of inquiries coming from abroad, Nagas living abroad, born and brought up there in Australia, in the US, trying to reconnect to their root. And because there is a lot of revival happening, traditional tattoos all over the world, and especially in New Zealand, Australia, it's a really big thing where the Polynesian, the Hawaiian, they are reclaiming their art and expression, and they are proudly carrying it on their body. And when they see this happening, they get reminded. They get reminded that we also have such rich tattoo tradition, and that's where the curiosity becomes, and they want to get marked, and they want to have they want to show their pride of being a Naga person. But here's the catch: I could not help them because whenever I do a tattoo, I sit through a consultation, uh, one-on-one, and then we talk about all this, about appropriation, about appreciation, about what is it that I'm doing, and eventually we find some tattoos uh, uh, that fits his or her requirement, and uh, and because of that, when you look on my page, or there is no explanation, no captions about my uh, my tattoos at all, because I know that social media, and even for that matter, even institutions, academic institutions, all these are a source of appropriation, so I keep it very close guarded. But despite that, uh, for some people, they just like the aesthetics, not necessarily the meanings of it. And there is not so much that we can do right now, because we ourselves, uh, the Nagas have not taken ownership of the tattoos. We are only beginning to realize that there is something more important, something more meaningful, and something significant in the study of the tattoo as well. So uh, so there is a lot of ownership and a lot of all these cases going on about textiles, but it should be the same for uh, other cultural expressions as well, not just textiles, but also about tattoo, about the carvings, about uh, about uh, uh, about their architecture, uh, various traditional knowledge about woods, so many things that we need to work on. And the problem is the same. Uh, Textile is easily accessible. It's not like tattoo, where tattoo is a lifetime commitment on your body. Textile is something that you can buy, and you can, they hang it on their wall. They do a lot of things with it, which a lot of Naga people don't approve of, but it's accessible for them, easily accessible. So that is going to happen with tattoo, and that happened with the tattoo from of the Maoris, and it's all over the world. It's been appropriated, and they have come to the terms that to allow, just like our uh, uh, just like mentioned earlier, certain patterns were allowed. Some certain patterns were shared with the world, but there are patterns, there are symbols and motifs which have significance and meanings, uh, that you have to earn, or you have to belong. So there are things like that, and without understanding those things, uh, talking about protection sometimes, uh, to me, sounds just very commercial. It's like uh, there is no groundwork. There is no groundwork, and there is no willingness to go in depth. And I have a lot of respect for the Pakistan organization, because when I was traveling in 2013 in the remote villages across Nagaland, studying about tattoos and also about handlooms together, I went to the district library. I met handloom officials, and uh, Pakistan was the only place in Futsal where I met them, and I don't know if you remember, but I went all the way. I met them. I got a booklet from them, and but this is very this is not the case so with other tribes. So whether it's tattoo, or whether it's handloom, or whether it's uh, uh, any any creation, our skills, our art, our expression, we need to document, we need to learn, we need to understand simultaneously, because just protecting, just claiming ownership, and uh, trying to ban, that's not going to work. And what Chakisang organization is doing is very great, because uh, they are letting certain patterns uh, to be used, and that creates opportunity for local designers, local artists. Otherwise, because of all this constant tiff between the traditional uh, ownership claims, and by tribes, and sometimes their own designer, like I will not take the name, but our designer, he was like, you know, so we have a lot of new designers, upcoming designers, a lot of passion, a lot of drive to create something that represents our people, our art, creativity. But unfortunately, there's no passion. There is no code. You know, there is no knowledge that they can access to. And so the way they look at all these shawls and other cultural objects as from the eye of an outsider, you know, so it tend to finish at the aesthetic level. It doesn't go deeper than that, and that's why it's so difficult for every medium, uh, uh, wood, textiles, tattoo, whatever, to for us to really go back, understand, continue the process of GI registration for protection, and but at the same time we have to nurture. We have to nurture because culture, tradition, art, or creativity can be stagnant. We have to grow because that's how culture evolves. That's how human beings are. You know, we always want to do better. All this creation, all this ownership, all this the cultural heritage that we have here was not made instantly. You know, it was through evolution of generations. So it cannot stop. It has to evolve, and we have to find ways uh, to do that in a meaningful way. And for that, we have to really go back, understand, and we have to work simultaneously. And it goes same with the tattoos.
Thank you, Mo, for the response. I can see Gam raising his hand, so I give the time to Gam.
Yeah, thank you. I just got tempted to say something, but more for conversation, of course. I think both the presentations are very good and very important for us to deliberate and understand and get into the subject matter, which we have neglected for such a long time, no? Because these are cultural expressions, but it is also the art forms that we have in many ways. And if there is no art in a society, it means we lack creativity. And without creativity and art forms in every society, it cannot grow. I think we have neglected for a long time. And in every society, it is the artists, it is the poets who, like in our case, would be folk songs and other things, who takes the lead in the discovery of one's civilization, right? They put forth these ideas in a way that may still seem vague, but something that they have already touched upon beyond the boundary of what the society has reached in the civilization. So in some sense, art therefore is really important for our people. And what Mo was saying, I really think that's the key thing. And he has raised many issues about aesthetics, protection without understanding, and so on. No? I think that's one of the reasons why the importance of textile or protection, etc., is diminishing. It is picking up again, but these cultural expressions are in a different context and in a different form, which we may say is in a more, I don't know, I'm not in the fashion world, but this kind of more commercial approach. And therefore, it becomes extremely difficult for us to define what is misappropriation, appropriation, and what is the best form of expressing these cultural expressions. We are not clear. No, it's kind of very confused state. So therefore, I think I really like what Mo was saying, that it is important for us to try and see through our ancestors' eyes, right? to really have the form. Many of us are talking about decolonization, gender framework, patriarchy framework, many things which are important. But I think we should leave that aside for now and really try to see from our ancestors' eyes, and then see where does this fall into now in this modern context, right? So for example, weaving, as Mo was explaining, it was a sacred activity. They have to go and sing, they have to go and do rituals, and it is all done by women and so on. What this is representing is something of transcendental in nature. And art is always transcendental. It helps us to transcend, to move forward in any society, right? It takes the kind of the first step for the people. And this is what women were doing in many sets. And in this, I see that, of course, carvings and other things are also there. But weaving was definitely one of the center stage that it occupied in our life. So in that sense, it was a sacred activity. Who invented that design, who created this doesn't become so important, right? Because it becomes a sacred activity of the community. We might establish social standards by giving that identity within a community itself, and of course the broader community, whatever has been created. But it was a sacred activity as far as I understand it. And therefore, we see that these creations, this identity, because identity is something beyond myself, something that is bigger than me, right? That is where symbolically, even we're conscious of it or not, we become very sensitive when our collective identity is touched. And that symbolism of our identity was in many ways expressed through these art forms and this kind of weavings, right? So this collective nature of these designs were expressions of our identity, and that's where we see ourselves beyond ourselves. So the creator is not so important here, but it becomes a kind of something that everybody has collectively embraced and give meaning to it. So collective meaning and collective identity. So the collective, that meaning is given in that collective identity. No? It's something like a national flag, right? If you are an American citizen or any country citizen, the flag becomes the symbol of your identity. So you cannot burn it. It is a very against a sacred act or sacred identity of a people. It's something like, okay, when we sing national anthem, our eyes waters, our hair prickles or something, because we feel something beyond ourselves, which is very difficult to be expressed. And this is expressed in this kind of art forms, right? And that's where at the same time, we are so sensitive about this thing. So I think understanding, like Mo is saying, looking at it from our ancestors' eyes, understanding it would help us to further define, okay, what is appropriate now in this adaptation? What is the frame that we should use to analyze? What should be considered misappropriation or exploitation or misuse, right? All these kind of things. And thereby this aspect of protection, as Mo is saying, the legal protection, what kind we can have, no? Already what the Chakasang community is doing, of course, is very important. And perhaps geographical indicator is the only tool available. So we're just trying to use what is there, right? It's not like the best thing that we have. So we have these limited options. But just one suggestion that I wanted to make is like, Nastek also was showing this Naga Mircha and the tomato and so on. And then of course, like Mo also saying, it's also about other things, right? Whether it's animal parts that's used for other things, genetic resources, let's put it that way. Nagaland has, I think, a law on genetic resources, which I think has been sort of lost over time, that people are not aware of, the sui generis system, right? Unfortunately, Nagaland state followed the National Biodiversity Act. So they will have a state biodiversity and so to do with genetic resources. But why I'm mentioning this is that because of the 371A, which Nasdaq was mentioning, Nagaland state does have the power and capacity to initiate its own protection mechanism to these art forms, cultural expressions, and these genetic resources, intellectual property rights in more holistic sense, right? So I think it would be a very good thing that if we begin to look at, of course, in Nagaland state, since it is possible, it could provide us something, to engage in much more critical discussions about what we are sharing here, and take it forward. From there, it might give us some ideas or some models to begin to develop in this very difficult issue. No? Sorry, I think I took more time than I was intending to.
Thank you so much again for your input. We also have, let me pick this comment from Sophie. Documentation and research is necessary for creating awareness and preserving the art form. But how much do we reveal to ensure that our indigenous knowledge is preserved, not exploited? So I would like to request either Mo or Nessa. And also here, another one is designer Ritu Berry or any other designer for that matter. Some like to think that well-known designer using our pattern design is good because they are showcasing our design to the world, which may not happen otherwise. But is there any way that other designer can use our patterns, or should we not allow at all? So we have these two from the chat box, and I would like to request any one of you to respond to some of the queries.
Shall I?
Yeah, please.
Okay. This is exactly what I was saying. There has to be we have to create a path. Culture, tradition, art, creativity shall not be stopped. It has to evolve, right? But the thing is that this comes after food and security. You first need to fill your stomach to appreciate, to have some time to appreciate and have the energy to give, to understand to art and culture. And for a long time, we did not have that opportunity as a community. But at this time, when the whole world is connected, and in fact, the whole Naga people are so easily connected through social media, so easily, so accessible, and especially the youths. And this is the time, and we are almost late, to form committees, including not just the weavers, but the weavers and the leaders, and artists, designers, and scientists like Nessa all come together and find a path. Because if we don't allow to use, if we completely stop the usage of our art and our expression, then what is the point of what is the point? It has never been like that. It has always evolved, and that's the nature of being a human, being a community. We have to evolve, and we have to create opportunity for designers and artists to access this information. Because we have not created that, it's being appropriated so easily by those who have the capacity. And our own people, because of the fear, they stopped using it, they walked away because they don't want to go through all these hassles. But these big designers are backed by institutions, sometimes even by the government, agencies. And because of that, and also they don't belong to the community. And traditionally, when something like this happens, when we have issues arising out of our textiles, it was sorted, because you are there, everybody is there, in the village, in the neighboring village. We never had this situation before of appropriation from or misuse from abroad, from far away places. And we never had that mechanism to defend, to protect from this force. So traditionally, we don't have that system, and we have to create that. Just because we don't have that system, if we just keep on sticking to how it was, then we are only taking opportunities away from our people, and we are only killing our creativity. And yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to add on, Nissa?
Yeah, I agreed with Moa we cannot stop creativity and from people from using it. So that is where this documentation and research is very important. Dig out, go back to the history and record it. And one thing I want to showcase here, I want to highlight here is that we need to understand also who should own the documentation and who are the people should help in documentation. So documentation, as Moa said, it is very important. So when for any IPR filing and all, everything, it goes back to documentation, proof of origin, everything we have to dig out, So that documentation with the uniqueness, all this, the pattern and all, describing all this, it's very important. So it's not, so it's not about being rigid, that GI thing you cannot people use and all, it's nothing like that. It's that with lots of this misuse happening, take the ownership, with the documentation, you can explain to them and all, use it in the right way. It's supposed to be used like this and all. It's for, like educating and all. Yeah, so documentation, that's very important. And here I want to, regarding this Ritu Berry's case, of course, she is showcasing our design and all. We have to appreciate them, but the thing is that due permission, due consensus should be given. It's not about rigid. It's not we are going to, the community is going to stop her from showcasing and all. But if at all, if the designer wants to showcase, take a due permission and showcase in a right manner, appropriately. Use in the right way. That is the thing. So here, what happened is that, and like the high-end designer and all, by showcasing this, by making into production, they're making money, out of the community's heritage. They are making lots of money from the traditional knowledge, from community's heritage. So that is the point that we cannot, the community cannot allow, if at all, if they want to use, if they want to go for the business, pay the royalty to the community. And so if the designer, if they want to use, then they can contact the concerned organization, the tribal organization, and they can showcase, yes, in the right way. And here in Ritu Berry's case, the Chagasan community, they have already obtained the court order not for her to do the production anymore, because it has gone up to the international market, So they have asked the court, and already the court order has been obtained not to do the mass production for the time being, unless this issue has been settled.
Thank you for that. So both of you have strongly raised, even some of our friends have strongly raised about the importance of documentation. When we talk about documentation, I think for me, maybe not for everyone or for the others, the GI format that we see, I think it's very important, because sometimes we get lost in the whole process of documentation. We don't know how to collect or where to put in the information. But then when we look at the GI format, the specification, the method of production, the uniqueness, and the different kinds of different questions that they have. For me, I find it very easy that if we are able to follow the format, it helps us to really see how we can do it. Because even if we want to do GI, without documentation, we cannot do GI. Unless we have the information, we cannot do GI. So even in, like, for example, if we look at all the cases in the Northeast, we also see that when it comes to other products, whether agricultural and horticultural products, maybe it has a different way of looking at it. But then when it comes to textiles, we have seen that except for the Ao and the Sema and the Angami, which has been abandoned. And I think I'll agree with Nessa that for me, when I look up at the documents, it essentially seems to be the problem with NIFT, who was helping that was with the NIFT, who was helping with the registration. They seem to have copy-paste the informations of all the three tribes. So on one hand, when we talk about the unique identity, on the other hand, we see these, because they have no idea, they have no clue about who is who, the different textiles or different patterns that every particular different community use. So they seem to have copy-paste a lot of the informations. And I think I'm just wondering whether that could be one of the reasons. But what I'm trying to say is that whether we look at Mizoram, we have 5 textiles that have been GI registered. We look at Nagaland, we have, I mean, even if it is written Chakesang shawls, it has 13 shawls there. And then in Manipur itself, we have 3 already, which has been registered in the textiles. So in that sense, I think even in, I mean, one of the difficulties in maybe perhaps in registering could be the proof of origin. But if we look at all the documents, we also see that there are also some of the textiles which have been registered, which necessarily does not have to trace back written documents about those particular textiles 100 years ago or 120 years ago. Some of them even have it just 40, 50 years ago. So it doesn't have to be in English. It doesn't have to be a colonizer coming and documenting. It has to be our own people writing in our own dialect, that where they have mentioned something about that, or the oral history, or the stories that we have learned from our generations before us. So I think GI registration is I don't think it is that as difficult as it is maybe perhaps for the others. For textiles, I think it has been proved by all these by all these different products that have been GI tagged. So with this, I also wanted to ask both Nessa and Mo, because in the course of the documentation, and when we talk about textiles, why is it that all the men would say, okay, I know nothing, you have to ask the women. But when we really start gathering the information, then at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, unfortunately, the women were not a part of the sitting around the fire when the stories were handed down. It was only the men who were sitting around the fire and listening to the stories of the forefathers, and the women have been excluded there. But all the clothes that we have a story. And then how do the women get the story? We know how to weave. We know how to make use of all the methods of productions. We know how to do that. But then when we are talking about the origin, then it has to go through the historical proof. There has to be something, and we are not able to get the information, the required information from the women. So Mo as a man and Nessa as a woman, how has been your experience trying to get information, and especially in your quest or in your support for, trying to promote awareness and all these things? What are the challenges that both of you face, who are more, more willing to give information and who are difficult to give information? And what has been your challenges on this?
For me, the first and the foremost challenge was my identity, because we have a lot of tribalism, where the first thing that when you meet someone, the first question will be, which tribe do you belong to? Which village do you come from? For that very reason, why for 4 or 5 years, I never revealed where I am from and what tribe I belong to. I changed my name to Mo Naga so that people can stop asking me that, and so that I can get information out of them. But I studied through the books and archives for 4 long years, and I was very specific which village to go and where to find. So when I travel, I carry a lot of information for them as well. So it is not always them who is giving me information. Sometimes I also carry information for them. So that is one way of opening up, showing them, reaching out to them, that I'm not here just to collect the information, but also bringing something from the past, because as you have rightly mentioned, it is not always the women, the weavers, who have the knowledge or the story or the history about the textile that she's weaving. It's not always that. And rightly said, most of the time it is the men who have the stories. So for textiles also, for tattoo also, it's the same. the woman has all the tattoo, but it is the man who has the story, you know. The woman is the artist normally. In most of the places, it's the woman who does the tattoo, but the story is with the man, you know. So, so it has not been very difficult for me because I carry information for them, and I do my groundwork, and I go there with a lot of love and a lot of respect, and I'm there to learn, you know. I'm there to learn. So it's always worked for me. I go there, I have food with them, I stay with them, and and I go back again after a few years, you know. So I build relations slowly, and every time I go back, I get more and more information. It's not one trip, one meeting. So it has not been really difficult for me. What is difficult for me is funding my own trips, funding my own research, because being an artist is not easy, you know. So till now, for the past 10 years, I have only funded myself my own from my own. So that is the difficult part. Meeting and learning, it has been fun for me.
Nisa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agreed with moi. Yeah, because yeah, from my experience, especially when I go to the village and I start asking about the shawl and all that, it is the man who knows the story. Yeah, of course, yeah, weaving and all the art, everything it's done by women, but it is the man, you know. Yeah, the story. That's I agreed with my. Yeah. So most of the information it is from the and oh, what surprises me is that the show, the story behind it, the pattern, line, all its significance and all, men don't know it, everything. And when we interact with the woman and all, oh, I did like this, it's morely towards the superficial thing as a partner. So it is the man. So their role is very important. Yeah, and the challenges, yeah, whatever it is for protection and for preserving. Documentation, as we have been discussing, that is the most important part, and that is the first step. And here, right now, I'm filing for this Angami and Sumi and Ao. So what happened is that I just want to cite an example here for the Angami tribe. They don't have any documentation or any published in their own dialect. Also, they don't have anything. So when I asked them to go back and do the documentation, and they bring some literature, they bring some these things. And I told them, no, you all have to take the trouble, go back and have the interaction with the villagers, or with the people, or with the old people. You have to dig out the story and do the recording also. So from there we can interpret and all. So some of them, they went back to the field, to the village and also, but the sad part is that most of the elderly people who knows the textile, who knows about the shawl and all, most of them, they have passed away. So they couldn't gather much. So that is the sad thing. So so right now it's very important. It's getting late that we should do the documentation, do the recording as much as we can. And also because that is the only way of preserving and protecting now in this given the current scenario.
So that leaves a larger question: how are we going to protect and preserve our traditional handloom and textiles if men do not want to be a part of the whole process? Myself and Nisa were also talking about it, why it's so difficult to get the men involved. With my little experience of having done some workshops on GI, every time we do it for the past 3-4 years, we have been doing this exercise, and every time we meet after a year or so, then it's like, oh, we couldn't do anything about it because the men are not interested. So this has been the response that I've been receiving from a lot of the women leaders. And then I think at the end of the day, 4 years down the line, we haven't seen much progressed when it comes to documentation itself. Forget about GI. So that's quite a lot of challenge. We have one question in the chat box. Can't we have our own security system like GI, or can't we ourselves protect our own traditional clothes textile instead of paying huge amount to the counterpart of India for GI registration? As it says, GI is like a business sector. I feel like we Nagas, tribal, hugely depend on mainland India. So I think it will be good to hear from both of you. Oh, there is also another one. Let me just go through this. In relation to Feast of Merit attires, even today, a non-entitled individual cannot still use it. If art has to evolve, should we give permission for others to use those designs? So I would like to put both the two questions to Mo and Nessa. And perhaps in the first question that I asked about having our own GI kind of a system, maybe that's exactly what GAM was talking about with 371A and then sui generis thing, which is their open within the whole IPR system. So how do we develop this, especially in Nagaland context?
I'm a big fan of this idea of creating a system, where we protect our cultural objects ourselves. Why not? We can do it, right? But it all comes down to the base, like what are we protecting? Again, the other question is the Feast of Merit, the shawl for that. Should we give creative license, for creators to use those? Now, what are those patterns? This is my question. The shawl, the pattern visually, and but what is it? Where does it come from? Where was it inspired from? And why is that in the cloth, not other motif, right? So once we understand that, then the answer lies in itself. We are asking this because we are not sure. We are not sure what it is. We physically want to claim it, but if we know about it, then we absolutely know that we cannot, So there is a lack of understanding of these motives, what it means, Sometimes, sadly, they are viewed as just simple communities, indigenous communities all over the world. Our inspiration has come from our immediate natural surrounding, through the animals, through the birds, through the plants. Naturally, we are very curious people, and we want to outdo ourselves. We want to be more efficient, more creative, more powerful, and hence we kept learning, we kept developing, and that's how we reached this point where we have so many beautiful, attractive expressions. It's unfortunately, when we look at it today, we don't know how to use it. We only know how to claim it. So we know that this is a cloth for the Feast of Merits, and for most people beyond that, you don't know. This is a cloth. This is a shawl for the chief, right? But what are in those things? So once we know those things, then the answer lies in itself, and it all boils down to, and if you really are really concerned about this, if you really want to protect it, if you want to have pride in it, and if you want it to be very exclusive, then why do we even have to sell it? Why do we even have to gift it to others? It is for us, and when we don't give it out, that is the true protection. We have full ownership, with full consciousness, full awareness, and we own it, right? And for others, we can always create new things, inspired from the original art, original piece. We can draw inspiration from it. But if we don't know what are those, our creation become meaningless, and that is what is happening, So when people see that, they think that, okay, that means I can do this as well. So they start going and then taking whatever they want, So we have to be very careful about this, and there is no other way but to go back to the root, look at our culture, and look at our expression from our ancestors' eyes, not through our eyes, and not through the modern conditioning, not through the religious eyes, because the moment we are looking from that, we are already judgmental. We are only handpicking what we want to see, what we want to hear, and we don't learn, So definitely, I as a very passionate person for our culture, for protection, the best thing is Don't even make it commercial, right? Don't even sell it, right? Make it your identity. It is your identity. Why do you want to give it to the others? Why do you want to exchange it for money? Right? You can create more. So ideally that is that, but the real situation on ground is different, and these are the other options that we have, like others have mentioned earlier, GI, because in the meantime, right now, we are hurrying, we are pushing towards GI, and we really need to push back as well towards the research, documentation, and understanding. So for now, I think GI is it, but eventually, in an ideal world, no owl wants to wear Sema's shawl. Sema guy doesn't want to wear owl shawl. Why would they? They have so much pride about their identity. Why would I go? That was never the case. So in the real ideal world, it would happen like that, but it is not so, and we have a long way to go. I think this is just the beginning, and unfortunately we are not in that position where we choose where to start. We have been given the outside force, of all this appropriation, GI have been thrown onto us, that we don't have the knowledge and preparedness to tackle this. So we have to deal with the situation to how it is. Yeah.
Nessa, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Yeah, so when it comes to the Feast of Marriage shawls, for me also, I agreed with Moa. In the first place, when we look back to our ancestor, these shawls, unless you earn it, you cannot wear. So, in order to preserve it and all, I also like, why sell it, or why give as a gift, or why use it as a scarf or as a waistcoat and all? Because in the olden days, it is a shawl only. So so then, if we have to allow people to start use the motifs and all without the understanding, then it becomes, for us, it has a value. But for the outsiders and all, it doesn't have any significance anymore. It doesn't have any value attached to it anymore. So when it comes to the Feast of Marriage shawls, in the first place, why why sell it? Keep it within the community and preserve it and all. And coming to the security system, like, am I audible? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So for the GI and all, yeah, this is a very debatable issue and all, but recently, as I said before, with the evolving of the cultural tourism in the name of promoting the culture, with the external factors coming in the form of that culture tourism and all, in the pretext of reviving, sustaining the culture, so many cultural appropriation, it's coming to the indigenous community. So of course, we have our own law and all, but as I said before, those our customary law stand in the court, the legal court. So I find that the only way for us also to start documenting
Sounds like a network problem. Nessa. Hello. I think the network is bad there. I think probably network problem there. I think We lost her.
Lost her, yeah, she's disconnected.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we lost Nessa. I think her network is not great as of now. And is there anyone who would like to say anything before we wind up this session? Because we have been here together for the past 1 hour and 50 minutes already. It's almost 2 hours. So, I mean, the discussion for me has been so interesting and engaging. And that's why we are all here right now. Is there anyone who would like to say anything from Mo? Because we have just lost Dr. Nessa now, and I'm not sure whether she'll be able to come back. So is there anything that you would like to say more before I hand it over to the organizer?
Can I say something?
Okay,
I'm
Yaureti.
Yaureti Horam. I'm working in ICAR.
Okay.
In this regard, where when we are talking about the culture appropriation, we are also looking into our culture sustainability in future. And so practically when we look, even we ourselves in our daily wear, we don't wear none of our traditional attire. And even when it comes with the occasions, we hardly wear in now, if we go back on Sunday, means other than the old women or mother, means very few we would see wearing our traditional clothes, attire. So in this, with the time, with the westernization that we are adapting, we are gradually losing our this culture of wearing all our attire. And now we are talking about all this preservation. Of course, these are something that we should be for our for the sake of our culture and for the sake of future. So can you please here, I would like to ask you, how can we encourage the younger generation and even ourselves, or means what would it be in terms of like legal intervention that we can make our ourselves other than the means other than giving, of course, the we can ask ourselves and we can yes, for ourselves to wear it. But is there any other way that you can encourage? Could you highlight? Thank you.
Mo, would you like to respond
Yes.
to that?
Okay. Yes, specifically talking about our attire, the dress that we wear now, highly westernized. Yes, this is actually loss of aesthetics. You know, colonization have different approach, and aesthetic is one very powerful medium through which it changes from within, and often one is not aware when it happened. It's a slow process, because there's no physical, there is nobody coming and telling you, uh, it's a choice that we start making, and aesthetics, like I said in the beginning, it's the core of our how our culture, our identity is formed, being in the nature, around the nature surrounding, our attempt was always to look attractive, to stand out, to be bold, to look attractive. That was our inspiration, and all this inspiration come from some from the hornbill, right, from the tiger, from the peacock, from the trees that blooms flowers, in spring, uh, from all these creatures around us, creatures that stands out, flowers that stands out. So our inspiration was that, and our aesthetic was built from that. But today, today, for the past many decades, now our inspiration are not nature anymore. Our inspiration is coming through social media, through television, through because we have the accessibility, we are easily accessing information from different very far places, and those things are affecting, and those things are changing our aesthetics. Now we have gone to the place where we don't understand or don't know how to appreciate our traditional original aesthetics anymore. So that is why it's easier for the new generations and the younger people to start imitating the Korean fashion or the American Western fashion, and it's a very natural process, and that's because we did not lay down the foundation. We did not have the opportunity, we did not create that platform to build that aesthetics in them. So it is very important. We cannot just expect, them to start changing and we cannot influence them that way. It has to be a very slow process, like how the outside conditioning came. We have to condition it in a very scientific and slow, process of starting from the grassroots. So in schools, in primary schools, we have to start introducing uh, about Naga art, Naga aesthetics, Naga culture. I think that way we can slowly reclaim. We don't have the system otherwise right now, because honestly, my father's generation spent their entire lifetime trying to create a security, a future for us. They never had the time or the opportunity to do so much about culture. So it is for us, it is the time, it is now. We have the opportunity, we have the accessibility. This is the right time to start working, and I think the first step is to work with primary schools, small kids. I think that is the way to bring the change. It cannot be sudden. Slow introduction of Naga aesthetics back, and which means we'll be talking a lot about all these folk tales and folklores, and we'll be showing them a lot about our different forms of our expression. Right now, these things are just some lines and some figures for them.
Thank you, Mo. We also have this comment from Gugu, and which she has stressed on cultural appreciation amongst ourselves, within ourselves. That I think I thank you very much for putting across your comment, Gugu. Thank you for that. I think it's almost to us now. And Nessa, if you can hear me, we would like to hear your comment before we wind up this particular dialogue. So if you can talk to us, have some last comments, Nessa. She also say that she cannot hear properly. So before I hand over to the organizer for them to at least say thank you to the speaker, I would like to thank both Nessa and Mo for being a part of this very interesting discussion. And like Gugu said, this is something that we should be doing more frequently, because unless we start talking about it, I don't think it's not going to go and it's not going to move forward. So maybe perhaps this is something that NPMHR can take it up in the near future, or anyone who is also here as participants to take this forward. Thank you very much, NPMHR, for organizing this program. Now I give the time to Guang.
Thank you so. And thank you,
It is for mental health.
Dr. Nissan, and thank you, Mo, for
office visit. Like
amazingly
office
presented to
conversation, not for
us the necessary things that we really need to begin thinking and also to start working. And thank you so much. And also, especially thank you all the participants and also those who provide meaningful insight for the discussions. Thank you so much. Yeah. And also, I would like to request speakers and also NPMHR members to kindly stay there for a few more minutes for short interactions. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You may leave.
Thank you.